strategic depth takes center stage in the next wave of strategy games. From real-time battles to carefully paced turn-based systems, these upcoming titles focus on planning, control, and long-term decision-making. Let's get into it. MENACE is a turn-based tactical RPG where you command a strike force responding to distress calls across multiple planets. You manage squads, vehicles, and limited resources, choosing missions and planning operations that unfold across connected battles. Combat uses cover, flanking, weapon ranges, suppression, armor types, and weather effects. Squad leaders can be trained, equipped, promoted, or permanently lost, with morale and past outcomes affecting future missions. A mobile strike cruiser supports upgrades, recovery, and mission planning.
Fire mission underway. Bring in more!
My dear children, I write this letter to you as...
Solasta 2 is built on the SRD 5.2 rule set, where you control a party of 4 adventurers operating across the land of Neath. Gameplay revolves around grid-based combat, dice-driven outcomes, spell preparation, positioning, and class abilities taken from tabletop systems. Party creation, character classes, ancestries, and equipment define combat options, while decisions made during encounters influence success and survival. Early access content includes a limited campaign portion, level caps, and systems planned to expand over time.
You should have saved her!
She deserves the peace of death.
What an interesting family you must have.
Is that fear I sense? Good.
Stay in the light. Never give into darkness. Your loving mother, Mahin.
Mars Tactics puts you in command of either Capital's corporate forces or Labor's revolutionary fighters during a planet-wide conflict on Mars. You manage armies across a strategic map, build bases, secure supply lines, and move units between locations. Battles shift to close-up engagements with infantry, vehicles, artillery, suppression mechanics, and fully destructible terrain. Soldiers develop traits through actions, equipment can be shared mid-fight, and long-term decisions influence reinforcements, resources, and future battles. Warhammer 40,000. Mechanicus 2 lets you command either Adeptus Mechanicus forces or Necron legions during a conflict for planetary control. You assemble squads, deploy units, and fight tactical battles shaped by faction abilities and terrain interaction, including cover, use, and terrain destruction. Between missions, you capture regions, manage resources, maintain garrisons, and upgrade leaders and units. Each faction plays differently, requiring distinct tactics, unit compositions, and approaches to territory control across the campaign.
Wretched amalgamations of meat and metal, shackled to ignorance by your faith. Do you truly believe you can stop us? We, who have shattered our very gods.
Alongside our allies, you will strike at the heart of tyranny and tear down the machinery.
Sudden Strike 5 depicts large-scale World War II operations across Europe and North Africa, placing you in control of infantry, vehicles, and artillery across 25 missions. You manage timing, positioning, and supplies while capturing key locations, destroying infrastructure, and cutting enemy movement. More than 300 units allow different tactical approaches, supported by customizable commanders with unique abilities. Large maps, high unit counts, and adjustable camera views support both wide battlefield control and close tactical decisions.
Your discipline and your skill stand firm, and so will you. We will accept nothing less than complete victory. Stand firm and move forward upon your great and noble mission.
The Last General puts you in command of a modern army, operating across massive battlefields with towns, cities, and key infrastructure. You issue high-level orders directly on the map, manage logistics, production, and construction, and secure resources to sustain the war effort. Missions range from large-scale offensives to assassinations, rescues, and insurrections. You can also take direct control of individual soldiers or vehicles, linking hands-on action with long-term strategic decisions. Game of Thrones War for Westeros centers on large-scale conflicts between the great houses across the Seven Kingdoms. Armies are raised, territories expanded, and resources gathered while iconic heroes influence battles and strategy. Campaigns support solo play and competitive multiplayer, where alliances, betrayals, and shifting power structures shape control of the realm and determine long-term dominance.
This is your legacy. You decide who wins and who dies.
Drillkeeper revolves around protecting a planetary drill while carving paths through fully destructible terrain. Digging provides resources and also shapes enemy movement, while cards are used to place buildings, traps, and upgrades. Enemy waves follow the shortest available routes, allowing terrain manipulation to control flow and defense. Each run introduces new cards, artifacts, heroes, and modifiers that alter mining efficiency and survival strategies. Neath centers on tactical encounters where turn order and enemy intent can be manipulated. Enemies lock targets in place when engaged, requiring movement, disruption, or sacrifice to prevent damage. Encounters are shaped by shifting rules called taboos, which alter abilities and positioning. Each run builds a fragile party through new skills and relics, while settlement upgrades between runs adjust preparation and available options. Minos is structured around building and reshaping labyrinths to repel waves of invading adventurers. Walls, gates, and corridors are arranged to control movement, while traps can be linked into chained reactions using pressure plates. Each run introduces different enemies, layouts, and tools, requiring continuous adaptation of maze design to maintain control and protect the sanctuary. Fogpiercer places players in command of a heavily armed train moving through hostile, fog-covered regions. You build your deck by selecting locomotives, carriages, and crew, with each part adding specific cards and abilities. Battles rely on limited actions, careful positioning, and chaining effects using terrain hazards and enemy movement. Resources gathered along branching routes allow upgrades, repairs, and new tactical options, while changing battlefields and enemy types force constant adjustment during each run. Pathbreakers Roaming Blades has you running a mercenary company across a procedurally generated island filled with towns, contracts, dungeons, and rival forces. You recruit, train, and equip fighters while managing supplies, coin, and reputation. Combat takes place on a hex grid where positioning, class abilities, flanking, and status effects matter. Outside battles, you choose how to earn income through contracts, trade routes, or dungeon raids, with decisions shaping encounters, opportunities, and long-term survival. Fragile Existence places you in command of the last human fleet as it moves between star systems to survive. You manage ships, crews, fuel, food, and ammunition while choosing routes through breach gates that change each run. Planets can be visited for ground operations where bases are built, resources extracted, and research secured. Fleet composition, ship modules, and crew assignments affect combat and logistics, with space and ground battles demanding careful preparation, retreats, and long-term resource planning.
Approaching destination system.
Dear Mother, I think of our last embrace and last goodbye. My dreams are ahead.
Gilded Destiny puts you in charge of a nation during the Industrial Age, managing politics, industry, warfare, and society on a global scale. You place cities, factories, and railways directly on a detailed world map, while overseeing production chains, trade flows, and population needs. Armies require supply lines, transport hubs, and technological upgrades to function effectively. Political parties, reforms, culture, and migration shape internal stability, while diplomacy and military campaigns determine how borders, power, and influence change over time.
We know of the despair that famine, poverty, and persecution can inflict. In this unprecedented era, the pendulum can swing from prospect to turmoil in a moment. Life in this new land can be challenging, yet inspiring. My hands, that once worked the soil, now craft metals in futuristic machinery. I'm not the only one searching for a new life. In the city, each avenue joins towering factories, staggering innovations, and hopeful workers. The tiring work, long hours, and crowded cities provide unbridled opportunity, but they represent a stark shift from the way of life back home. I often hope for simpler times once again. Stories of opportunities out west, new jobs, unlimited land, unimaginable wealth have convinced me to stay, to plan, to aim for the frontier. I look ahead to the
Heroes of Might and Magic Olden Era is built around heroes leading armies across a strategic map supported by town development and resource management. Creatures are recruited and upgraded through city structures, while heroes develop skills and spells that affect movement, combat, and economy. Battles occur on separate tactical fields, where positioning, unit abilities, and magic determine results. Multiple factions encourage varied army compositions and long-term planning. Falling Frontier centers on competition across a procedurally generated star system shaped by logistics and intelligence. Shipyards, refineries, supply depots, and recon stations support fleet operations, while ships are designed for specific combat and support roles. Combat accounts for subsystem damage, missed fire, and ambush tactics. Supply lines, scouting, and sensor coverage are critical for sustaining campaigns and countering raids.
Doing extravehicular activity, or EVA, is somehow becoming detached and floating away.
The Expanse Osiris Reborn combines third-person combat with squad coordination and narrative-driven decision-making. Cover-based gunplay and abilities are paired with real-time companion commands, with some crew members supporting missions remotely. Ship management, character customization, and relationship dynamics influence progression. Dialogue choices and mission outcomes shape how events unfold across stations, asteroids, and planetary settlements.
We actually use tethers to keep ourselves attached to the vehicle. In a reactive game, that would be too clumsy, and so mag boots is a creative way to kind of compromise and keep it realistic, but also be able to be reactive. But the fear is the same, becoming detached somehow and drifting away. And that's just one example. Even firearms would behave differently in space. Recoil and ballistics would also be different. People think about space as silent, but silence can mean danger. For example, inside of the spacesuit, there's a steady hum of the fan that's blowing oxygen over your face. The people at Owlcat Games did some research and figured out that vibrations caused by shots inside of a vehicle would translate to the hull and likely be felt through the mag boots.
We love the idea, but have to adapt it. Pure realism would mean almost no sound in combat. No vacuum, you hear more than Austiners do, but far less than in atmosphere. What you hear is what your character feels. Breath, comes, vibrations. The tension stays, and so does the fear.
The mission crews train for months, even years together. The commander is chosen first and sets the tone. Just like in the game, trust takes time and shared experience.
The ship is crew's home. To craft the right atmosphere, we focus on the smallest of details. Life in space changes tastes. Astronauts often crave spices just to feel such sensations again. On pink water meals created from what could actually be grown in orbit. And in the same spirit, you'll even hear your companions discussing food and ingredients on the ship. We hope that our approach to blending realism with gameplay considerations will make players experience something engaging and truly immersive.
Warhammer 40,000. Dark Heresy is structured around investigations into heresy across the Calixis sector. Dialogue systems, interrogations, and evidence gathering drive progression between missions. Combat encounters emphasize positioning, targeting weak points, and managing party morale. Warband members come from varied backgrounds with distinct abilities, while investigation outcomes influence alliances, consequences, and the broader conflict.
Enemies from without. By enemies from beyond. Still, no matter the cost, we must persevere. Every blade must be turned to our defense. Every soul, every dark secret. For if we fail, all will fall into the damnation of eternal night.
Total War Warhammer 40,000 places you in control of major factions fighting for dominance across a galaxy-wide campaign. You manage squad composition, positioning, and abilities across turn-based combat scenarios where cover, flanking, and coordinated actions matter. Each squad member brings distinct skills shaped by background and role, requiring careful use in battle. Missions advance a narrative driven by choices, with squad relationships and tactical outcomes influencing how situations resolve.
The one fought in the shadows. The war beneath the war. A war that's won with the right strategy. Surveillance, ciphers, good old-fashioned sabotage. These aren't the heroes they tell stories about. They're professionals. Setting aside their differences to take on the impossible. But that's the job, and they get it done.
in the grim darkness.
Total War, Warhammer 40K, places you in control of major factions fighting for dominance across a galaxy-wide campaign. You manage planets, fleets, economies, and armies on a strategic map, then deploy forces into large-scale real-time battles on planetary surfaces. Each faction uses distinct units, war machines, and abilities, supported by customization options for armies and commanders. Campaign decisions affect resources, territory control, and military strength, while battles rely on positioning, combined arms, reinforcements, and destructive firepower.
Across countless worlds, battles rage. Lead your armies. Conquer worlds. Fight on as the galaxy burns. For there is no peace amongst the stars. There is only war.
Sanctuary Shattered Sun takes place on a massive Dyson sphere, where large-scale battles unfold across a fully connected surface. You build bases, manage resources, research technology, and move hundreds of units across huge maps. The environment can be altered through climate control and superweapons, allowing terrain to freeze, collapse, or open new paths. Multiple factions offer different units and systems, while strategic zoom, automation tools, and large battlefields support long-term planning over rapid micromanagement. Anvil Empires lets thousands of players share a persistent medieval world where wars unfold over weeks. You gather resources, farm, trade, and build settlements that grow into fortified towns and castles. Large armies form organically as players organize marches, sieges, and defenses in real time. Supplying food, weapons, and siege equipment is critical, with logistics lines and supply camps supporting long campaigns and determining whether assaults succeed or collapse. Front RTS places you in command of forces fighting across a war-scarred planet using both local battles and a strategic global map. You build bases, gather resources, and produce infantry, vehicles, and aircraft, while unlocking new technologies. Campaign progression is non-linear, with procedurally generated missions and asymmetrical encounters against stronger enemies. Decisions on the global layer affect economy, territory control, and unit persistence, as veteran troops can move between battles, reinforce garrisons, or form long-term strike groups.